Albert, where is Aaron Rodgers? Albert, where's Aaron?
The best I can answer this right now, that I feel solid about is that he is somewhere that they could not excuse, and maintain credibility with the rest of the locker room, but um, would be expected. Would not be an out of left field thing for him. So you guys can open your mind, so to speak, as he's been known to open his mind
Interesting.
sometimes into all the possibilities that might create for you.
You're spilling just a little tea, is what you're saying.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think like the one thing that I think is important here, and like I want to first say what I know, and then I'll tell you what I think. Like what I know is that Robert Saleh, the coaching staff, the front office, they were apprised of this, and so there was open dialogue about this, and so really over the last 2 months, he's been a very engaged member of the off-season program. He was last year too, which is a lot more than you could say for really the last half decade he was in Green Bay,
Mm-hmm.
right? So he's done more, and there's no question about that. And so, like he told them that he had something he didn't want to miss, and that he was going to be away for the last week of the off-season program, which is when the mandatory minicamp is. They communicated to him that they wouldn't be able to excuse him for that. And again, it's because that's how you maintain credibility with your locker room. You can't do something for one person that you wouldn't do for other stars of the team, let alone like guys on down the roster, right? Like if you wouldn't do this for Hassan Reddick, or you wouldn't do this for Garrett Wilson, or you wouldn't do this for Sauce Gardner, you can't really do it for Aaron Rodgers. And it sounds to me, at least, like Aaron had an understanding of that. So he understands that they can't excuse it, and he understands if fines come. Like he gets that. Apparently, he's on board with it. Now, there's the information part of this that is making it much worse, right? Which is if this had come out 2 weeks ago or a week ago, and this part of it's what I think. If this had come to light a week ago or 2 weeks ago, we're not talking about this, right? Like if Robert Saleh gets up there at the podium last week and says, "Yeah, this is going to be Aaron's last week," there's a prearranged thing that he want to take part in next week. He won't be here for that. We're not going to excuse it, but per our team policy, but like we just want to give everybody a heads up. This would be much less of a story. It becomes a story because we're finding out right when it happens. And so, now it looks the same way, CD Lamb staying away, or Hassan Reddick or Amari Cooper staying away looks, right? Like where it looks like this is some sort of statement when maybe it's not.
Well, okay. So
Although the statement would be, I mean, like to me, again, this is what I think, Rich, right? Is isn't there a because I can element to this, right? Like, why are you doing this? Because I can, right? Because I'm Aaron Rodgers. And there's that
I mean,
element.
that's one way to look at it, Albert. I personally, just not saying I know the guy, but I mean, I've covered him, and I,
Yeah.
I know people who know him, and I have spoken to him, in the past, but not about this subject matter.
Yep.
It strikes me the way I was saying it is the offense is essentially his, right? The offensive coordinator has the title as such, but he's the offensive coordinator. It's just it's basically Nathaniel Hackett is there to help the process for Rodgers' offense
To
that
coach
he
the
wants
other
to
10
run.
guys.
Pretty well, or to coach Aaron, but I mean to come up with schemes that Aaron know, or plays that he may know that Aaron wants to do, or Aaron can change it,
to install.
right.
Yeah.
So
to
the
install
offense is
Aaron's
installed. He's cool with it. He's ready to go. All right. Like as far the one thing that he needs to do, maybe, is get his mind right. And if that's what he's doing right now, doing that. Yeah. Then that's just as important as he thinks as doing the mandatory minicamp and all that sort of stuff. It's just that's the way that I view it. And he told the Jets, and they're like, "Listen, man, like if that's what you're doing, we can't excuse it or whatever." But and also, like, if the team and the players are cool with it, and he's cool with it, like internally, there's no discord, and that's all that matters to them. They have to know, though. They have to know where they're residing in the New York City metropolitan area. Yeah. They have to know this. They have to know that if they're going to play it like this, the way it would be received, and to know basically that bridge is out, and they had this much run up of roadway to get to the bridge, why they would just floor it and go right into the abyss makes no sense at all. I mean, the Bucks had, as we know, a couple summers ago, Brady had a 2-week respite from training camp. And they let folks know in advance this is going to happen. And obviously there was a full-on conversation as to why he was gone. But they got it out there. There's also, you can't move training camp. Why don't the Jets switch weeks of when they're holding the mini camp?
Yeah.
If they had months of heads up, why didn't they make the week before the mandatory mini camp when Rodgers was there? I don't get that.
When there were a bunch of teams that did that.
Right.
There were a bunch of teams that did have the mini camp last week and then have a couple last OTAs this week. And if you're having OTAs this week and you're having mini camp last week, well, then Aaron Rodgers missing the OTAs is no big deal. Right?
Yeah. Like it's just that he's just not there. He's excused, and I don't understand.
Well, that would be voluntary. The OTAs would be voluntary.
Right, exactly.
So
right. And it would come out as just him being, there's that quirky guy going off to, if he does, some spot, some destination spot to get his mind right. Isn't that crazy? He's just a little, he's Aaron Rodgers. And I don't understand it.
It opens the door to speculation.
That's the thing.
And it opens the door to all of us talking about it and all of us speculating.
But if it doesn't matter to them, I guess if they're all good inside the building, but the conversation outside the building is so unflattering that I don't know how it doesn't affect something.
I mean, like ayahuasca is now like a trending topic on Twitter, probably, right? Like, well, why is that? Because this door has been opened. And I think that part of it is important because it's just like, and again, like I'm not saying this is going to affect the way that they go to training camp. And I'm with you. Like, I think Aaron Rodgers being in the right mental space at his age to play a full season and go through a 17-game season and come back from the Achilles injury is paramount. That's really important. And I'm with you. Like, I think the management of it is where we can ask those questions. And how are you managing this situation? And if we had known about this a couple of weeks ago, it's still a story, but it's less of one, right? And like where this becomes an issue now is like, well, if Aaron's away this week, well, all right, when is he going to address this? Well, not until at least next week, right? Or the week after that, or whenever he decides to do it. And until then, he's left a lot of other people to answer for him, right? Like if he had gone on, I don't know, like let's say he went on McAfee and just spilled it last week. This is a lot less of an issue. You know what I mean? This is not a problem as much, at least.
Mm-hmm.
Where if he explained it, I think the unfortunate part is now you've left Robert Saleh and you've left your teammates in a position where that's all they're going to be asked about, right? Like, and so, over the course of the 3-day mini camp, so much focus is going to be on the guy who's not there, and because he's not there to explain it, like that leaves all of you to explain it. And so I think that's part of it. And then of course, like there's the other part of it, which is if Aaron goes out and throws 16 touchdown passes and 2 interceptions in the first month of the season, you know how many people are talking about this?
0. 0.0.
But if they stumble out of the gate, what are people going to be pointing back to? So there's that part of it too. The same way, by the way, like people, like when Brady, when the Bucks, and I believe they were 8-9 that year. Now they won the division and they rallied and everything else, but there were points that year where people pointed back to Brady missing the 2 weeks in training camp, right? Like this sort of becomes the same thing now, which seems ridiculous because it's 3 days in June, but it does feel like the door's been open because of the handling of it.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.